So November was just a fantastic month for the channel and for life in general. The highlight of the month was having Richard from Vintage SF stop by. He was on his way down to Arizona, and I happened to be kind of right on the path down here. We were having a storm at the time, but he managed to get here safely. Got to meet him and his wife. We took them out to my favorite bookstore. They happened to be having their 50th anniversary celebration. So all of these vintage paperbacks I normally get for $2, they had everything half off, so we got them all for $1. And I keep a close eye on this bookstore, and I started noticing a lot of new books. And it turns out when we went and checked out, they said someone had just come and dropped off a couple bags of these really good condition vintage paperbacks. So it was like great timing. We went out to dinner after that and then filmed a video with Matt. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then woke up in the morning and got to chat with him some more before he headed off down to Arizona. So that was definitely the highlight of the month for me. But also got to go over to Coeur d'Alene. I did a vacation book haul where I talk about that. And I managed to find this just amazing stash of just beautiful condition vintage paperbacks. It's like what you dream about going into these bookstores, and I happened to just stumble across this place at the right time, and it was fantastic. And then also, right before Richard got here, the weekend before, we had a really nice weekend, and I've been wanting to do another bookshelf edition, and it was either do it that weekend or wait until spring, because I open up my garage and pull all my saws out and everything. And so I managed to get that done. I installed a whole new rack of shelves. I'll probably show that off in some future video. But I've probably got capacity for maybe around 3,000 paperbacks here. And so, the goal is really to turn this into some sort of vintage science fiction paperback museum in a way. And I think I'm about halfway there. I've got a lot more books that I'm trying to hunt down. And so should be a lot of fun in the future, just kind of keeping up with that and looking for new books and all that. Now, since I was able to do this edition, I reshuffled my shelves around. You may have noticed I've got a couple shelves here that I'm going to leave dedicated for certain things. I'm still kind of working on it, so I'm going to make some nicer, labels for this. I just have some paper with Sharpie marker labels right now, so I'm definitely going to improve that. But this shelf is going to be kind of my TBR, and as you watch my videos, you'll see these books kind of rotate through. I might not always read them in the exact order that I have them up there, but it's kind of to give you a preview of what's to come on the channel. And then up here is kind of some books that are going to be coming out in my next book haul, give you a little glimpse of that. And maybe throughout the month, this shelf will kind of fill up, and then as I do a book haul, it'll clear out that shelf, and you'll get to see that thing kind of fill up again. And so that's kind of fun. I got all that done this month, had a blast with all that, but now let's talk about what I actually read. So the first book I finished this month, I got from the library, and that was Roadside Picnic by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. And I had seen the movie just a few weeks before this, and so I wanted to read it and got it from the library. I really enjoyed it. I know this is a book that some people don't like, but I don't know if it was seeing the movie and getting an idea of like the setting and tone and some of the weird concepts, but I was all in on it. I really enjoyed the book, and I'm really glad I finally got to read that one. And then next up was The Hole in the Zero by M.K. Joseph. And this book I read with Chris over at Liminal Spaces, and it was a challenging read. Chris really loved it. He spent the extra time to go back and take notes, and I did grasp most of it, but he did a deep read, and I watched that, and he definitely pieced some really interesting parts of this book together to make a little bit more sense. And so I definitely feel like I need to reread that at some point. But I really had a blast with Chris talking about the book, and we have we already have plans for future read-alongs and stuff in the future. So just look for that in the future. And then the next book I finished, I don't have a physical copy of this one. This I read on my e-reader. And this was Gateway Trip by Frederick Pohl. And I had finished up the Gateway Saga, or the Hichi Saga. And this is kind of a collection of short stories, and really like this one. I think if you read the Hichi Saga, you gotta read this one too. There's a short story he wrote before Gateway, and it's kind of the first mention of the Hichi. And then there's all these little Gateway Trip stories that are in there from all these prospectors taking off from the Gateway asteroid into unknown parts of the galaxy. And it wrapped up a lot of things and questions in the entire saga. So I think it's a definite must read if you read the main 4 books. And then next up was Out of Their Minds by Clifford Simic. And this was a group read with Sean D. Stanfast and Scott Danielson. And I was on Sean's channel with Sean and Scott talking about that one. It's probably my least favorite Simic book so far. I think I've read 9 books from Simic, but it was still fun. It was enjoyable. It was different. And Sean brought up a really good point that this could have been kind of Simic's way of maybe writing some new wave, because he kind of came from the more traditional golden age of science fiction, but maybe he was dabbling and experimenting, but it was still fun. And then read The Best of L. Sprague de Camp. And this was the video I did with Richard and Matt. And we all kind of went into this one thinking it might not be the best. It was one of the reasons I picked it, to kind of maybe get this one out of the way. But I think we all had a better impression in the end. There were some stories that were great. There were some that weren't that great, but he can really take and twist and turn these stories and take them in weird directions. And there's a story that seemed like a Monty Python episode, and lots of stories that have to do with animals, and it was fun and entertaining. And then next up was Macroscope by Piers Anthony. I didn't really know much about this one going in, and I was kind of hesitant as I started reading it. I wasn't sure where he was going, if he was going to pull this one off. But in the end, I really did enjoy it. I do think it was a product of the late 60s. And so it probably won't appeal to a lot of people. It's not one that I would recommend to many people. But I did a longer form review of that one. You can watch that if you'd like. In the end, I really did enjoy it. And I'm glad I read that one. Even though it was long, it took me a big chunk of the month to get through that one. And then the last book I read this month was The Baudelaire Way by Louis Tremble. And this is a new thing me and the wife started doing. She's going to go through and pick out a random book off of the shelves. And when I get a chance to read it, it might not be every month, but pick it up and read it. And it's kind of some of these more obscure books. She has this whole way of picking these books out. I think we're going to see a lot of cats or dogs or animals on the cover. But she looks at some other things. She reads the back. She kind of goes for authors I haven't read before. And so it's a really good way to kind of branch out and just pick up some of these books that might have taken me decades to get around to. And so that could be a fun kind of addition to the channel. So I guess my book of the month this month is going to have to be Roadside Picnic. This is one I was really hoping I was going to like it, and I really did enjoy it. And there wasn't maybe an outstanding book. I really did enjoy this one. I wouldn't call it a 5-star read for me, but still it was probably my top book of the month. So that's for November. Now let's look into December. Now, I also put out a video about being halfway through this series of 140 books that I'm reading. And I kind of opened it up and asked for some other people to do some collaborations with. So you'll see a couple books coming up that we're going to have some collaborations on the channel. But the first book I'm going to read is The Werewolf Principle by Clifford Simic. And this is another one for Sean on his channel. We kind of got behind, And so this was supposed to be November's selection. So we're going to discuss it next month. It'll be like the first week of December. And then there's another selection for the month of December too. And then Rogue Moon by Aldous Budrys. This is going to be the next book I probably read and review on the channel. This is part of the Masterpieces of Science Fiction, so look for that one. And then I've been real interested in John T. Sladek, so I want to read Mechasm. This is one I really want to read. I guarantee I'll read it in the month of December. And then Tim over at Secret Fire Books, we were talking about reading Dragonflight, and this is part of my series, so we're going to read this, and then I'm going to have him on the channel and discuss this one probably around the middle of December. And then I had a lot of comments about Ron Goulart recently, and some people had made some suggestions on the channel, so I'm going to try to read The Sword Swallower by Ron Goulart. I have yet to read anything from Goulart, so I'd really like to get to that one this month. And then Deb over at Omnivorous Reader, we discussed having her on the channel. So we're going to buddy read Ringworld by Larry Niven. And this, we're going to hope to get to this by maybe the end of December, but depending on schedule and everything, that can be a little tricky scheduling everything out. And she's in Australia, so the time zone and everything plays into that too. But if we can't get to it in December, I'm gonna have her on the channel, and we'll discuss that in January. And then my wife picked out her next wife's wild card, and that is Christopher Anvil, Pandora's Planet. And this is another DAW, has a great cover. I've never read anything from Anvil. Don't really know what this book is about. I kind of like going into these blind. But whenever I get a chance to read that, I'll read that one, and then she'll pick the next one out. So it was a great month. It's going to be hard to top the month of November, but still really looking forward to the next few months. I got a lot of these collaboration videos scheduled out with all kinds of other booktubers. I'm really excited for that. And so let me know what you read in November. Let me know what you're thinking about reading in December. Let me know if you found any good books this last month. And that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.